Thank you, and welcome back to the Patriots 300 Level Podcast. My name is Eric, and I'm joined by my co-host Kevin. Welcome back for our 80th episode this week, where we'll be recapping another Patriots loss, this time to the Tennessee Titans, and previewing their upcoming game versus the Chicago Bears. As a reminder, you can follow us on Twitter/X and Instagram at Past 300 Level Pod for up-to-the-minute updates and commentary on news of the day. Kevin, Patriots going into this game after beating the Jets. Uh, Hopefully, you were thinking they have some momentum. Titans had one of the worst records in the league going into that game. They were 1-6, I believe. Patriots were 2-6, 1-6 or 1-7. So you thought like they had a realistic shot, and the Titans this year have been characterized by bad coaching, especially after moving on from a great coach, something a lot of Patriot fans can connect with, but also a lot of very bad quarterback play and just terrible situational awareness where they're in a lot of games, but then they just have a critical turnover in a key situation to lose them the game. So I know a lot of people had expectations that the Patriots could have a realistic shot at this game. They played competitively. I'd say, in my opinion, this is another game this year where it's been five or six where it seems like both teams playing and coaching are essentially trying to outlose the other team. And it's just the other team won't take advantage of it. And this was just another one where it was just bad football, sloppy football, bad coaching, bad playing. What was your thoughts on the game overall?
Yeah, no, I thought that kind of going into that Jets game, of course, because we didn't get to recap that one just because we had some scheduling conflicts last week.
Yeah.
But I thought going into that, I thought they were going to lay down and die completely. So I was a
Yeah.
little bit surprised that again, it's not that they were overly like competitive in that. But I do give them credit for winning that game and coming back. I thought that, especially when Jacoby went in, I thought they were just going to keel over and die, and that'd be
Yep.
the
Same
complete
here.
end of the season. And you would actually have um, potentially realistic talks of the firing of Gerard Mayo. Whereas if the entire team just completely like quits,
Yep.
and that didn't happen. So good for the team to kind of rally on from Jacksonville. But going into this game, we saw a lot of the same old stuff that we've been saying, and I'm kind of getting sick and tired of talking about it because it makes us seem like Gerard Mayo haters. And that's not the intention. I think both of us want him to succeed because if he does succeed, that means the team is going to succeed. And he's not. He's getting worse by the week, I would say. I don't think he's getting better. You would expect him to have these growing pains where he
Yep.
makes a mistake and then that's something he learns from. But these aren't just like simple, like kind of strategic, like, oh, I wouldn't do that. But I could see why you're doing that. And you learn, like, well, probably next time it'd make more sense to do this. There's
Yep.
like procedural issues and basic kind of concepts that he's not getting and stuff
Yep.
that he should have an understanding of not even just not having head coaching experience, having football and just assistant coaching experience in general. If you had these 5 years that you're supposed to be learning under Bill from, did you learn anything? Did you learn about situational awareness? Did you learn about having a feel for the game? Did you learn about holding players accountable and what that does?
Yep.
And it just doesn't seem to be happening. It gets worse and worse, and they're a poorly coached team. And it's really from top down. It's starting from the head coach, the offensive coordinator, is running a system that's like 20 years old and completely out of date and has no feel of play calling whatsoever throughout the game. And then you have a defensive corner that he's probably in over his head. And not to blame because I think both of us we really liked Demarcus Covington, but the problem
Yep.
with him being the defensive corner on this team is you have no one around that has the experience to help out. Where
Yeah.
Mayo was never defensive coordinator, and Covington was a defensive coordinator, and then AVP was never technically he was an offensive coordinator, but not a real offensive coordinator. So you have all these guys, and even the special teams coach was an assistant special teams coordinator. You have all these guys that have never done it before, and you all at the same time. It's not like you
Yeah.
have one guy here and then you can kind of slowly bring him up while everyone else you can kind of leave him to be.
Mhm.
That's just not the way it is. And it's an
Exactly. And this is
impossible
this is some
situation, especially for a first-time head coach that has never done
Yep.
it and doesn't have the experience. And he clearly is in over his head, and not just on the defensive side, which is supposed to be a strong point. We'll get into it in a little bit, but like some of the kind of miscues of what their preparation was for this game, like
Yeah.
what their game plan was going into this. Even if AVP
It,
wanted to do something, Mayo should have had the wherewithal to realize it was a bad idea. And if the two of them throw it together, that's another thing. So,
yeah. No, and this is something that we talked about a lot, especially in the off season after the coaches were announced, where going into it, if you're going with a rookie head coach in Gerard Mayo, you want to surround him with experienced coaches. And
mhm,
we both understood from a defensive side why you wanted to go with Covington, where he's very liked in-house. He's thought of very highly. But this is something that we did talk about where Gerard isn't a defensive coordinator. He's only coached one position. He's only played one position. Covington has only coached one position. It's a big step going from the best defensive mind in NFL history in Bill, and then also losing your defensive coordinator in Steve as well, to raising two people who have never had that experience. And again, we were thinking this defense was top five in the NFL last year. They should be okay. I know we both thought maybe they'd be inconsistent, but they'd be playing better than they are. But Covington has no one to lean on, and then Gerard, obviously, again, we don't know who's is Covington doing all the game planning? Is it Gerard, and
mhm,
then, or are they doing it together? We don't know, but they didn't have the experience to do it. And then on the offensive side, I understood why in the offseason I was thinking AVP made sense because he's an experienced coach. He wasn't calling the plays, but he was an offensive coordinator for 4 years, and then having such an inexperienced coaching staff, it made sense more so than like a Nick Caley who's only been a position coach and his position players haven't played well or things like that, but showing why he was their 13th choice or whatever it was.
mhm.
He's he seems in over his head even with all the experience that he's had. So just all around the coaching is just so inexperienced, and I'm expecting major changes this offseason. Again, I don't know who's going to want to come to this situation, both with the ownership, with the front office, the players, and the head coach. Offensive coordinator, maybe if they see Drake May and think that he could be like a Justin Herbert or a top quarterback, that could excite them. But
Mhm.
other than that, there's just so much inconsistency, so much unknown with this coaching staff. It might be tough to get those top end talent.
Agreed too, because the other thing is too, looking into to next year. I don't want to get too into it, but if you're thinking, I want to come, you completely blow out the coordinator situation, and you hire new ones. There's a chance that, assuming nothing improves, that they're going to wipe out everyone next year, and that there's a chance there. If it gets worse, if it doesn't get any better, and I
Yeah.
know we all thought that Mayo would have 3 to 4 years, but if he's showing an aptitude like he is still, like it's
Like
going to be
Nathaniel Hackett
hard.
level, which so far
Yeah,
has been, in my opinion.
yeah, or Brandon Staley, where
Yeah.
Staley got held on way too long. Like everyone knew the guy was incompetent, and he got what, four
Yeah, but
years?
that's because their owner was cheap, and I know some people
Oh.
say the same thing about ours, but also their quarterback was winning them games,
hmm
and they were so talented on offense that they could win in spite of terrible coaching.
Yeah. So if you're seeing that ineptitude still next year, I throw everything what I said out the window where I said he gets 3 years, he'd be fired in the fourth year, like if it still doesn't work out. If you're still seeing these same things, I highly doubt that he survives next year. And
Yeah,
that's the thing, someone coming into the situation would be like, why am I going to put my career up in jeopardy where
yeah,
I'm this rising offensive, like, because you need to get this rising offensive mind. Why would they come here? Why would they come here to be possibly blown out and
yeah.
then start
Never
from
have a chance
scratch
again.
again? Yeah.
Yeah,
And you're gonna have some guys that'll say, "Well, I can do it. Like, I just need the quarterback, and I need them to let me like pick a wide receiver or something like
yeah,
that, and have
yeah,
more, maybe more of a say on like the personnel." Um, and maybe that's what happens. But right now, just the whole situation is kind of muddy.
yeah.
And it's not a great kind of area for acquiring the next guy
Yeah.
because I think
It-
both of us agree. I don't think AVP is not going to be here.
yeah, no chance. And
Yeah,
then
Covington he might be if they hire some like defensive like
like a
assistant,
Vrabel type, like
someone that
consultant or
could,
something
yeah,
like
some
that.
consultant that could come
Not
on
not
and
saying
help
they
out.
will hire Vrabel, but I'm
Yeah.
saying someone like that, how Vrabel went
Yeah,
to
someone,
Cleveland.
some veteran guy. Like you could even say like
Matty Eberflus if he gets fired this year, for
him
instance.
or why am I blanking? Ron Rivera, like
Yeah,
someone like that, where they're not going to be probably a head coach again, and they're
Yep.
going to kind of sit on the sideline, help out a little bit, and kind of the same sort of situation
What
where you
McAdoo's
have
doing.
McAdoo's doing the offense. I don't really know what he's doing, but
Yeah.
uh, but we can kind of save that for it. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Part of the reason too why we're honing in on the coaching miscues again, and it seems like a weekly occurrence because anyone watching this team has seen it's been a weekly occurrence, but there were two egregious issues, at least from my perspective. The number one was going into the week or going into the game, Gerard Mayo was saying that the biggest thing they have to do is focus on Simmons of the Titans, who's by far their best player overall, one of the best
and
defensive
one of the
players in
best
football.
defensive tackles in the league is say
Yeah,
with Aaron Donald being going, it's him, Dexter Lawrence,
Chris
there's one
Jones.
Chris Jones, um,
Those are probably top three, maybe one or
mhm.
two others you can throw in there, but he even Mayo acknowledged he's going to be a force. We're going to have to try and neutralize him. And what did they do? They start not only just activate, they start a player who's a healthy scratch the last 3 or 4 weeks. Start him who's struggled all season in pass protection. He's a good run blocker, or at times is a good run blocker, but terrible in pass protection. To go essentially one on one with Simmons and then move Onwenu out to right tackle. When your offensive line the last few weeks has been playing its best over the course of the season. Again, that's not a high standard compared to how terrible they were at the beginning of the year, but typically with offensive lines, you need consistency in order to play better. You need to have the same players week in, week out to have comfort with each other, know what each other is going to be doing. And they started to play better, and all of a sudden you shake that up. You move Onwenu to right tackle, which again, depending on the week, that might make sense, but not this week where you're putting a rookie guard who's been terrible at pass protection against one of, if not the best defensive tackles in football.
No, agreed. And then of course what happens, what you expect happens. He got
Yeah.
his ass kicked. And then they
Yeah.
ended up benching him right before the half and then switched Wenu back to guard and then um Devontae Jacobs, I think is his name,
Yeah.
at right tackle. There's so many random names now. It's always hard to keep them straight. So that one is just a completely like coaching dereliction of you have no idea what you're doing. And like let's say AVP said, well, we realize that he's gonna be a force, and that's why we're gonna do these outside tosses and screens and stuff. It didn't work. And you should realize that he's your number one guy. You can't have a one-on-one with a rookie guard that isn't isn't great in pass protection right now. He may be good eventually,
Yeah.
and he may need some work on there. But you would never see this with a Bill Belichick team. You would see
Especially with a
so
rookie
many.
quarterback too that was in concussion protocol this week.
Hmm. And then there's some people that May doesn't think that he had a concussion.
Yeah.
So it's here or there,
And
but still,
still.
you need to protect him. And that you would have never seen this with Bill.
Yeah.
There were so many times throughout the last 20 years where there are dominant pass rushers, defensive tackles, ends, and he would go into the game and you would never hear their name. You
JJ
would
Watt
have
is a key
JJ
one.
Watt was a huge one.
Yeah.
TJ Watt with the Steelers.
Aaron
You
Donald with the Rams in the Super
Aaron
Bowl.
Donald with the Rams. Chris
Dwight Freeney
Jones.
sometimes fast pass rushers
Hmm.
against left tackles. Like for instance, Matt Light sometimes had
Hmm.
trouble with like Jason Taylor or Dwight Freeney.
Yeah.
But those are the exceptions to the rule. But for
Yeah.
the most part, especially interior guys
Hmm.
like Haloti Nada, JJ Watt, etc.,
Hmm.
you never heard from.
Yeah, and what he would do is they would have a plan. They would say, "We're not going to single this guy. We're going to double cover him, or we're going to do these different kind of stunts on the line and get quick passes out and not run right at him."
Yeah,
And they just didn't do anything like that. He's the number one guy you need to make sure you took out of this game, and you
yeah,
didn't do that. And you you did it in a completely asinine way,
yeah,
where you've been clamoring, saying the whole reason why the offensive line isn't doing well is because you haven't had the same five guys playing in the same time. And then what do after you get some good play out of it? You switch it up. And again, I think it's a little bit of a mirage about the kind of the pressure stats that we've
oh, I
seen the
agree.
last couple of weeks
Yeah,
because the teams that they faced are actually kind of poor on the defensive line and
yeah.
poor on pass rush. So it's not like you're seeing like an average to like good group that you're going up against. Um and the thing that helps with May is that he's so quick that you're not seeing a lot of the pressure that you saw with Brissett because Brissett would just hold on to it too long.
Yep.
And then the other one, anything else on the guard before we get into the next?
No, you can move on to the next one.
Okay, the other one's completely mind-blowingly stupid. This is the stupidest thing I've ever, probably the stupidest thing that he said so far.
Yeah.
Where
If even if this was true, I don't know how you can admit that.
like the only way I could see this being the case is that Cardona messed up the call. Like they told him and he messed it up, and then he's not trying to throw him under the bus. I'll give him a little bit of maybe credit for that. I don't think that's the case just by how clueless he sounded when he was
Yeah.
talking about this. I don't think he even knew it changed. So this is
Yeah.
when the wind change. He claimed the wind changed directions. I don't know if that was the case or if they just picked the wrong side.
Yeah.
But they ended up picking that they were going into the wind in overtime.
Yeah.
So I don't have. We're gonna get into it in a little bit. Is probably the end of the game situation. Do you go for two? Do you
Yeah.
kick it and go in overtime? Um, I don't have a problem per se of the decision there.
Yeah.
Um, I do have
I
a
understand both schools
problem.
of thought. Like
I
I
understand both schools of thought. I do have a problem of what I think happened though in that
yeah.
situation. So, but
I
the
think I
wind
know what you're gonna say, and
itself,
if it is, I agree. But
yeah. So the wind problem itself is that's basics. And even if the wind did change, you tell Cardona, make sure that you're kicking with the wind.
yeah.
Like it's not a hard situation.
Was it
And you
Cardona or was it Hunter? Hunter? I thought it was
Cardona was
Hunter,
the one
but
that went up for the coin to us.
okay.
I remember thinking that I think that it was odd that I saw him there. Like of
Yeah.
all the people
Well,
that
he's
would be
one of the
there.
only captains from the beginning of the season
Yeah.
left, but
But I don't think he was covering for him. I think
yeah.
they just didn't have that button up, and that's just such a simple thing.
And it ended up being a big issue too, because on the interception that Drake May threw, he was throwing it into the wind. And
Hmm.
again, it still probably would have, it wasn't a good decision.
Yeah.
It's a rookie mistake where he probably didn't see the safety. He saw his guy, thought he could throw it, and isn't
Hmm.
used to safeties and NFL coverage being what they are compared to college.
Hmm.
But the ball also died in the wind because of it. And if he was throwing it with the wind, maybe that doesn't get picked off. Maybe it's a touchdown. Maybe it's just an overthrow and they live
Hmm.
to play another down. But that definitely could have had an impact on the game.
Yeah. And to go from extremes where Bill was so tied in to the wind,
Yeah.
where he was worried about the Oculus closing not in time and what that does to a kickoff in a
Yeah.
dome where it probably isn't even going to really even do anything, but to
Yeah.
even think and know about that, to go to a guy that didn't
And
realize that.
even sometimes there were two different instances where he kicked it off in overtime, not giving him a chance to start with the ball because they knew the wind and thought that the wind was going to be such an
Hmm.
advantage for their defense and disadvantage for the offense that
Yeah.
that would give them the
Yeah,
best chance to win.
there's
It's
the key.
not, yeah,
Yeah, I was gonna say there's the key situation with the Broncos
yeah,
where they ended up going with the wind when they came back when they were down by 24 points to start. I was at that game,
yeah,
and he knew that just by watching it, and because at that point Manning's arm was he was never Manning never had a terrific like powerful like zip on the ball,
yeah,
and as he got older, just he couldn't throw into the wind at Gillette. So when they got into that situation, they knew if they had him going with the wind, going against the wind, that he would have trouble. And then the last situation is the 2 point conversion
yeah,
that they didn't do at the end of the game, where I could see both schools of thought. I think the
yeah.
biggest one being you don't have any timeouts. May just ran around for 12 or 14 seconds, so he's
Yeah.
probably exhausted. So Art,
Not just May, but all the offensive
yeah, the whole
linemen, all the
yeah.
receivers, running backs, etc.
Yeah, just to get everyone back to the line and have them catch their breath and be able to run a play there, it could be tough.
Yeah.
And then the other kind of school of thought is, well, your entire team is gassed. You're getting run
Yeah.
on
One more thing
defense.
before you go on the other another one
Hmm.
other thing too is you also have to have a play that you feel comfortable will work in that
Yes.
situation. If you don't have a play that you feel comfortable will work, then you don't do it too.
Hmm.
Where it could be based on maybe going into the week you had a 2 point play or you had two, but based on how the defense was defending you or how your players were playing that day, you might not feel
Hmm.
comfortable with it. And because of that, you take the odds of you kick the field goal. Your defense hadn't given up too much touchdowns versus Tennessee, so likely
Hmm.
you'll get a ball at least one chance to either tie the game or win it in overtime.
Hmm. No, no, agreed. And then like in that situation, you would say like, oh, like we have this really good rep that we practice with Polk,
Yeah.
but then you saw in the game again he shit the bed
Yeah.
and he had two penalties and a drop pass, and you can't rely on him, or like another situation. So, um, or like let's say you had this great bootleg option with May, but he just ran around for 12, 13 seconds. Do you really
Yeah.
want him doing that right there? But I don't think just the way that he answered it at the end of the game, where he was like, "I'm not going to get into that now," uh, or get into it now, made it sound like there was a situation that either one of a few things happened. Either one, he didn't realize it until afterwards and didn't
Yeah.
realize that he should have gone for two, and then someone called him out for it. Because there actually was a clip that showed that Jonathan was turning to Robert before it turned away. He's like, we should go for, and then like it cut away. So
Yeah.
was that something that Robert or Jonathan asked? Oh, did you think about going for that? And then he didn't even like realize that was like an option.
Yeah.
Or let's say he wanted to go for two and the analytics guys overruled him and he was kind of annoyed at that situation. He's like, he didn't want to get into it
Yeah.
then. Or AVP wasn't ready and he was covering for him that he didn't have a play ready in time,
Yeah.
that he couldn't have called it in time because he wasn't ready,
Yeah.
because he's a bumbling idiot. And the other situation, I think that was all of them.
No,
I don't know
there
if there's
there was
an.
one that when I was listening to the press conference the next day,
Mhm.
I didn't think this was it, but when someone asked him about it, he was saying, "Well, it's hindsight's 2020 essentially." He was saying like, "You guys criticized me a couple weeks ago for going for two. Now you criticize me for not going to two." And maybe that was in his thought where if I go for two and lose, I'm going to get criticized in the media again, which again,
Mhm.
2 weeks ago it wasn't criticized that you went for two. It was when you decided to go for two.
Mhm.
Again, there's two schools of thoughts. I understand both sides. It makes more sense to go for it later, but there also are advantages if you go for it early and you know what you have to get, and then it puts even more pressure on the other team. But again, maybe it was thinking that, oh, I got criticized before for going for two, then maybe I'll get criticized again. And this way I'm at least playing it safe where I go into overtime and I have a chance.
Yep, exactly.
Assuming Sly's extra point makes it,
And
which
he
it almost
almost
didn't.
missed it, yeah. And but then the biggest thing though too is like I don't have a problem with him not going for it.
Yeah, I don't either.
But my
Again,
biggest thing was that I don't
you're
think he had a reason to go or not go for it.
yeah,
It just doesn't seem like he was prepared.
yeah,
So someone wasn't prepared. Either AVP wasn't prepared, either he got into an argument and he doesn't have control and he can't actually call what he wants to do, and he's not a real head coach, or he doesn't know the situation, or he didn't get like AVP saying like he should be in the headset like
yeah.
when they're at like the half saying, oh, if we score here, we're going for two, or we're not going to go for two because of this.
Yeah.
Um,
And it could also be the situation where you said where they were too tired on offense or they didn't feel like they had the play because of
I just
XYZ that
don't
happened.
think it just doesn't seem like
Yeah, I
that
don't
would have
think it
been the
is either, but
situation
again,
based off
without
of his
knowing.
response.
Yeah,
Because I think if it was something that simple, he would have mentioned it,
that's
where
fair. He would have given an excuse like
he
he
would have
has
given
all
an
year.
excuse like the guys were gassed, or like we just didn't think we were in the right situation there for it, like it wasn't going to work out. But just the way that he kind of threw it away and didn't
Yep.
want to talk about it, where he wants to talk about anything.
Yeah.
So like the fact that he didn't want to address it means that there was something behind it where he's either covering for himself or covering for someone else. It just doesn't. It's just three big things in this
Yeah.
game. It just seems like they're getting worse,
Yeah.
and the play isn't getting any better. The the
Yeah.
the we'll get into the defense in a little bit, and we're rambling a lot. So let's get into Drake May.
Yeah.
So there's some good, some bad here.
This was
29-41.
okay.
I'm just
You
gonna
can
list
go.
the stats and
Yeah.
you can kind of give it a thing. 29-41, 206 yards, touchdown, two interceptions. He had the most rushing yards for the entire team, eight scrambles for 95 yards. Does not slide at
Yeah.
all. That drives me fucking bananas because
And
I
that's what he did in
texted,
college too.
yeah. So he thinks he's Josh Allen. And he's two-thirds of the size of him.
Yeah.
So why don't you give your thoughts for it, and then I'll get into it.
Yeah, so I'd say out of all the games he started, this was probably his worst. Numbers wise and statistics wise, you could argue maybe it is, maybe it wasn't. But it was more just seeing him starting to revert back to some of his bad habits in college, where he's throwing like his first interception. Um, he just didn't see the coverage and threw it right to the defender. The second interception didn't see the safety over the top, also throwing into the wind, maybe didn't realize it or not. But not knowing that in the NFL, that type of throw with the safety will be able to cover the whole field and get that. But also there are times where he's getting pressure and he like does a jump throw or like throws off his back foot where those were things he did in college and he got away with. And he got away with most of them this game, but I'm just worried about as the season goes on, if he starts going back to more and more of those against good defenses, that's not gonna it's not gonna go well. So again, not so much bad where it impacted the game. You could say yes or no on those interceptions, but most of the other bad habits, it didn't impact them that much, but I could see it going on. But still, one thing that I am still impressed with is him stepping up in the pocket, where that was one thing I wasn't expecting him to do well this year. And again, he did have some of those like jump throws and everything, but still overall better than what I was expecting to be at this point of the season.
Yeah, no, and I think he gets better kind of physically throughout as he plays each game. And
Yeah,
I can see what you say by like the habit stuff. I think they've been there the entire time. I don't think so. This is a thing that I've been thinking of since watching him, where everyone was like, "Oh, it's great they sat him, everything he learned." I can't really tell like what he's learned from really good defense. So that's one
yeah,
thing I could say. I don't know like what how much progress he's made
yeah,
or with the playbook. But the actual physical stuff that everyone was saying that we were saying and everyone else was saying that you need to sit him and correct because it's not right. Nothing looks different than what it
yeah,
was in college. He does the same stuff. He is the same player. So if I watched a lot of UNC last year, I think you did too. And I think a lot of other people watched it that are listening. But he looks like the exact same player as UNC. He makes a ton of kind of great off-platform plays.
yeah,
He makes some throws that you're like, what the hell was that? That was a complete like airmail, or he kicks it into the dirt, the throw,
yeah,
and he has some of these mind-numbing like interceptions, but he makes these great like
yeah,
fantastic throws off schedule, these runs that are like I didn't think he could run that fast. He's a lot faster than he looks while he's like
yeah.
running. There's something weird. I don't know what it is about him, but he doesn't look that fast, but he is.
Hmm.
Um and he's a great playmaker. We've never seen a Patriot quarterback like this ever. The closest was probably Cam Newton, and his arm was washed by the
Yeah.
end. So it's really kind of cool to watch like your own guy do this and be like kind of a mini Josh Allen, mini kind of one of those type of players. But he's also got to rein in. And if you look at turnover worthy throws, he's a lead. The only person that was ahead of him is Baker Mayfield, but he had more games. If you do it on per pass attempt, he's actually leading the league in turnover worthy plays. So he hasn't cleaned that up. And again, he's a
Yeah.
rookie, so you're not expecting it to be clean.
I,
Josh
I was
Allen,
expecting it to be worse. Like if he started game one, it to be similar to Mac last year, but with more talent, so he gets away with a
hmm
couple more. So that's why I'm saying better than I was expecting. But I thought this week was the most of those.
hmm
What are you doing type of plays,
Yeah,
even if you got
but
away with them.
my biggest thing is because I don't think anything has changed like physically for him. I don't see what their plan actually did.
Yeah.
Where I think if you're gonna play him this early, you should have actually played him starting week one, and you should have actually ramped him up in the preseason training camp by actually giving him first team reps
Yeah.
to practice and get up for that and have him prepared for week one because I think you just wasted 5 weeks where it seems like he does seem like he learns from playing a little bit.
Hmm.
Um, but it's kind of tough to tell because he still makes a bunch of mistakes, but
Yeah.
he doesn't seem like he's the one thing I really like about him, um, that you can tell that he's just calm and he doesn't
Yeah.
seem like pressure gets to him and he doesn't seem like this frantic kind of guy. It doesn't seem like he's gonna get affected by pressure or like the situation around him, and he seems like kind of a leader. So it's not something we saw with the previous guy where
We did in the beginning.
a little bit,
His
but you
his first year,
but he
minus
was
the Saints game, but
that's the biggest giveaway when he was crying. Had to be taken away by Bill. Um, so again, I just don't know what their whole. I don't think they had a plan, and I don't think their plan actually worked.
Yeah.
All right.
We'll see.
All right. One big thing before we move on though too, where I was mentioning this in the group chat or that we have with our friends, but we were saying at the time one of the reasons to go to May is to try and save like AVP's job, where
Yeah.
the offense wasn't working. It
Yeah.
was stagnant with Jacoby Brissett, and some other people too that would save their job. I think it's actually making that more evident that these guys are not the head coach, not the offensive coaches, the head coach
Yeah.
for this team, and it's actually exposing them more because you could tell the AVP has no idea how to use him. He doesn't
Yeah.
know the proper offense to use, and again, he doesn't want to like. You could say like. I understand not running him as much right now, having design runs, but designed runs, they at least know where their blockers are going to be, and less likely to actually take hits and they could
Yeah.
slide on time. Whereas a off schedule, off platform play, you're more likely to not know what's going on. It's kind of running like a chicken with a head cut off, and then you
Hmm.
get hit more. But he's not even doing any RPOs or any of these things from college that he liked. He's in the shotgun more than a typical like old school West Coast offense that typically ran, but he's doing nothing to make it easier for him. And you see this with Cliff Kingsbury in Washington. You have two basically similar situations where you had two shitty teams last year that again, I think the Patriots were actually better than the Commanders were, and just kind of got a bad quarterback play for the most part. And if you kind of play those games over again, even with Mac Jones, they probably would have won a little bit more games. It's just the luck of the draw. Um, and you have one team that has a really bad record still, and then you have another team that's doing really well. So it's just the difference in coaching, I think is a
Yeah.
huge thing.
Yeah. No, I agreed.
All right. Running and wide receivers, I don't really have kind of much to say other than
The
the
only thing
running was
I would
mostly just the
say,
run blocking, I think is the
yeah,
big issue.
I mean, going into the season, in the offseason, Gerard was saying we're going to be a run heavy team, run first team, and we're going to run the ball, whether you know it or not, and we're going to be that type of team. And then there's first couple of weeks they did well, and then after that, just falling down again. Part of it's run blocking, part of it's probably scheme and play calling. But this week, Ramondre, 10 carries, 16 yards. Between the running backs, 12 carries for 15 yards, and they had a touchdown, but still, that's pathetic.
Mhm.
And when you know you can't run the ball, that means that the defense knows you're going to be passing every time, which means that they can do scheme blitzes. The pass rushers can uh, start rushing the quarterback again with May. You might have to do it a little more cautiously because he can scramble, but uh, it makes the whole operation for the offense worse if you're not able to run the ball. And then wide receivers haven't really been able to do much. Bourne was quiet his first 2 weeks back. A little better this week, but still only 4 catches, 41 yards. Douglas hasn't done much this year. He had a great rookie year, but
I don't think they
very,
know how to use them is the
yeah,
other thing.
it
And then
probably
the
is
other thing
that.
is the slot wide receiver isn't a big portion of the kind of old school West Coast offense.
Yeah,
And that's the other thing where you're trying to fit all these players into your scheme. You're not trying to fit the scheme to the players.
yeah,
And it's just baffling.
yep, no, agreed.
Um,
Yeah, that's pretty much all on the offense. It's been pretty horrendous all year, but this was another game where Drake May was able to get some things and help the team move the ball just because of his skill set, especially compared to Brissett. But overall, not a great operation from starting from coaching on down, and then
yep.
even execution.
All right. Defense bad again. They're
Yeah,
they're facing
one of the worst offenses in football.
yeah. And you're facing a backup quarterback, and you make the entire team look like the Kansas City Chiefs,
Yeah,
where they ran it down your throat. They basically threw it down your throat too when they wanted
yeah.
to, without make
Except
until they made
Mason
mistakes.
Rudolph's mistakes help keep the Patriots in the game. If that was
Yeah.
any other quarterback,
If
they
this was
get blown.
any other team, they would have been blown out by the first half.
Yeah,
And then that's just the other thing too, where I don't think their head coach has any idea what he's doing, and it was like
yeah,
a head coach kind of suck off. But you could see he's the one that's actually the play caller for their offense, and you could see a lot of things that they did open, like schemed open guys, and they
yeah,
had some really good motions and sweeps and stuff to get people open, and they had guys open for Rudolph to throw to. It's just that. Rudolph isn't great and he can't really execute it. But you could just
Yeah.
see the difference between the two offenses and what you're looking for, where you want this modern West Coast offense versus this 1990s West Coast offense that hasn't
Yeah.
changed in 30 years. Um, Again, I can't stand him.
Yeah. Yeah, just some last minute things of this game, and then we can move on. Especially in the end of the game and then overtime, Titans pretty much ran it down your throat at will, and you knew they were going to be running, and you just could do nothing to stop it. Polk ended up with 28 carries for 128 yards. Then another big thing for they weren't Patriots weren't able to get a pass rush, only one sack, and then all season, fifth worst in pressure rate of all defenses in the NFL, fourth worst in sacks, less than two a game. And then if you're able to get pressure, that opens up your defense to be able to create turnovers and things like that. But if you're not able to get a pass rush and your other team's able to run it down your throat, there's pretty much nothing you can do.
No, exactly. I think the other big thing is here too. If you take away Keon White, what does that the pressure rate look like? It's even
Yeah,
worse.
it's
It's
terrible.
non-existent
Yeah.
basically. And it's not good. Where
Yep.
this should be their key kind of focal point is their defense, and it's one of their worst things.
Yep.
All right,
Agreed.
three up, three down. So I think we have the same ones for three up. So I can just go list them off and say them really quick, and
Yep.
then you can kind of make any other comments. So I have Hunter Henry, Drake May, and Marcus Jones. Henry is the most dependable kind of receiver on the field and was really good in this game. 7 catches, 56 yards. Drake May was basically the entire offense.
Yep.
They had no rushing without him. They had all the passing yards. And you kind of live and die with him right now. And hopefully he continues to get better and cleans up those mistakes. But
Yep.
he made a lot of plays there. And then Marcus Jones, his punt returns were huge for them. They wouldn't have been in this game. So,
Another week in a row.
yep. And then someone kicking straight to him rather than out of bounds. That's another idiotic thing
Yeah.
that the Titans coaches did, where you know to kick it away from him and you don't. You kick it straight down the middle to
Yep. No, I agree. I had
him.
same three just in different order. I had Marcus Jones first just because he gave you a lot of your offense just from those punt returns. He's been one of your most dependable players all
Mhm.
year. Hunter Henry too. You're pretty much your only dependable receiving guy where he can get open and catch the ball, gives Drake May an option, and then Drake May number three. I had him a little lower than you just because of those inconsistencies or bad habits that we mentioned earlier, but still he was one of your best players again this week.
Yep. All right. One other kind of key thing with Marcus Jones that Bill Key kind of I feel like he needles in there is that he mentions how they use them on offense
Yeah.
um, every once in a while, and I think that could be a little kind of kick in the groin to them for not using him at all. Three down guards. The Jordan, Michael Jordan and Layden Robinson, terrible. He was playing good at the beginning of the year. He is really bad lately.
Yeah.
Like really bad where they
I
need
still don't
actually
understand how So went from one of, if not your best offensive lineman this year to not even starting. Again, maybe it was going from right to left. But even if
could
that's
be
the
right to
case,
left. It could be the scheme where he's not
yeah,
doesn't fit in this Scott Peters thing where
possibly.
I still don't see you see a complete regression with everyone
Yeah.
under him. So I can't really see how
Your
he's
best offensive lineman performance was Brown, the rookie center, who he only was with the team for 3 days before his
Mhm.
first game. That first game was the best performance because he didn't have any practice under this coaching staff.
Yeah.
But
So I don't think they have the players that would fit the coaches. So, but
yeah.
Michael Jordan's gotten terrible the last couple games. He's really bad in this game. If you do, I don't know if you saw the clip
Oh,
on the
on the last scramble
on the
where he was
last play,
just
yeah,
standing around looking for someone, and yeah,
and didn't do anything. And then Robinson again, we talked about was
yeah.
bad, but it's not
Again,
really
maybe
his
not
fault.
Robinson's fault going up with that matchup, but still, if
Yep,
you're put in that situation, you have to at least put an effort in.
yep. Coaching, we talked about it, all three of them. All three
Yeah.
of them should be fired anyway, but well, that's another discussion. And then the defensive front seven, they got ran over, and it was another soft performance by them.
Yep. No, I had the same three in slightly different order. Coaches number one, all three, starting with Mayo on down. Number two, front seven, where you know they're going to be running the ball and you just can't do anything to stop it. And then the guards, number three.
Yep. All right. So news around the NFL trade deadline. I don't think there's anything really of note that you want to get to other than just Hopkins and Uche going to the
Yeah, Hopkins and Uche
Uche
going. going to the Chiefs, Amari Cooper going to the Bills, Devontae Adams going to the Jets, but not much. There were some small moves here or there, but nothing major.
Yeah. And then the Saints fired their head coach. I'm blanking on his name again.
Dennis Allen.
Dennis Allen, because he is the most forgettable guy, I feel like,
Yeah, he
in the
is.
world. And I didn't even realize that Derek Carr has now gotten him fired twice as a head coach. I had no idea he even coached the Raiders. He is the most forgettable head coach I think that has ever existed, at
Yeah,
least
but
that I
the
can
thing too
remember.
is that the weird thing about the firing was if you read the Saints like statement, again, they're never going to disparage a guy, but
They
pretty much what
praised
they're
him.
yeah, they
Like,
praised him saying we dealt with a lot of injuries this year. He always came in, put in the best effort, put the team in the best situation to succeed. We wish him well. If you're blaming the injuries and he always put you in a situation to have a chance, why are you firing him, especially considering the cap situation that they're in right now and then going forward where it seems every year they're 80 plus million over the cap.
yeah.
But
And eventually you're going to need to hard reset this.
yeah,
And who's going to want to come into a hard reset where you're getting, I don't even know what they're going to do to
yeah,
like completely reset because they can't even cut people to like save cap space.
yeah. Yep.
It,
No, agreed.
it's going to be a couple years of just hell for them. All right. Chicago Bears, the next team that they're going to face. 4-4. You're getting them in a good spot because the team seems to be imploding. Um, and
DJ Moore was at DJ Moore quit on a play this last
mhm,
week, and then this week he was asked, "Has Matt Eberflus, their head coach, lost the team?" And then he says, "I don't think so."
yeah. And whenever you hear a coach say that, it's never good.
Yeah, players say that.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Bears, they're a very talented team, very young, but they're 4-4. They've beaten the bad teams that they needed to
Mhm.
beat, with the exception of the Colts. But they beat the Titans, they beat the Panthers, they beat the Jaguars, which again the Patriots weren't able to beat the Jaguars or Titans, so it's not looking good for them. But they've had four losses, three of them close to some good teams. They lost to the Texans by 6, lost to the Commanders by 3, lost to the Colts by 5, and then this past week they got blown out by the Cardinals by 20. But the Cardinals are pretty good this year. Um,
Although neither Marvin Harrison or Kyler Murray did a single thing in that game,
that's true.
and I lost in fantasy because of that.
Yeah, well, I lost this week because Cole Kmet, the Bears tight end, coincidentally or not, got me 0 points. I scored the third most
Mhm.
points in the league, and I still lost by 4.
Mhm.
But anyway, very, very good on offense. They have rookie Caleb Williams, who's been inconsistent this year. But as the season's going on, you've seen him get a little better here and there. DeAndre Swift, their running back, has played very well this year, really helping my fantasy team. But he's really doing well compared to what he did last year. You have three really good wide receivers: DJ Moore, who's probably top 10 wide receiver in the NFL. They have Keenan Allen, who isn't having as good of a year as he did last year with the Chargers, but he's still a good wide receiver. And then Roma Dunze, who
Mhm.
they spent the ninth pick on this year, where he's a rookie, isn't playing as well as like Neighbors or Harrison, but he is still very talented. And then at tight end, they have Cole Kmet, who tight ends have actually killed the Patriots this year. So even though he had 0 points last week, I'm still starting him this week because I think he's going to do well against the Patriots secondary. One thing though is their offensive line isn't good. And that's something that they didn't address in the off season either. So if you're gonna have success this week, you're gonna have to find a way to pressure Caleb Williams, keep him in the pocket, and pressure him, which is something the Patriots defense has not been able to do successfully this year. Their defense is pretty good. Matt Eberflus is a defensive coach. He has a lot of good schemes, and they have some good young players on defense. But overall, if the Patriots want to win, they're going to have to find a way to force Caleb to have some turnovers, force him to scramble, or essentially, my thought is try and do what you did to Zach Wilson the last however many years. Pressure him, keep him in the pocket but scrambling, and force him to throw interceptions that he shouldn't be throwing.
Yep. All right. So prediction time
And it's in
here.
Chicago too.
Yes. So Bears are favored -6 over under 39. Typically, if this is a regular Patriots Bill Belichick coach team,
Yeah.
and you saw that this team was kind of on the wits where they could be at the end where they could implode and quit on their team, I would say they're going for the kill, and he would know how to defend Caleb Williams. He would do
Yeah,
the exact
especially
same
Bill
thing with Zach
with a
Wilson.
quarterback like Caleb, I think he would
You know
find a way
exactly
to,
how to
yeah,
do it. I don't think Mayo knows how to. From what we've seen on any game, they haven't game planned well at all.
yep,
When they haven't had more than 6 months to game plan for a
yep,
game. So I don't think they're going to game plan the right way. Whatever they're going to do, I think is going to be wrong. And the fact that again they faced this situation before with the Jaguars and failed
yep,
about an imploding team, and I think they're going to do the same thing here. I think Bears 31-17. I think they could even score more. I think they're going to have trouble containing Williams.
yep,
And they're going to get a lot of kind of off-platform plays with him, and they're not going to have a lot of the interceptions that you would usually get
yep.
from there here.
Yeah, no, I agree. I have the Bears winning 38-13. I think that Bears are going to find a way to exploit the Patriots defense. I don't think the Patriots are going to be able to get a pass rush. And I think Caleb's going to find or have his way with the Patriots defense with all the weapons that he has. And then I also think DeAndre Swift's going to have a big game too. And then I also think that Matt Eberflus, who is a good defensive coach, he was able to really only coach this year really to slow down or stop Jaden Daniels.
Hmm.
I think that May's gonna have his worst week this week just because they're gonna have a way of game planning against him. And he might have some interceptions that typically he hasn't. Hopefully he doesn't. And if he does have it, hopefully it's something that he humbles him and he learns from it and builds on going forward. Again, like we said with him this year, it's not really about winning games. It's not about him being rookie of the year. It's him learning, especially going up against good defenses, good defensive schemes, and building on it so that as the weeks go on, he learns from those and gets better and better. And then next year, hopefully, they can take that step forward. But I really hope I'm wrong, but I have the Bears pretty much blowing out the Patriots 38-13.
All right. Well, thank you again for listening. Hopefully we start being back on a weekly schedule. Just have a bunch of scheduling issues
Yeah.
lately, but it's been kind of like every other week. Not bad because it's the same thing we're talking about every week. Where coaching
Yep.
issues, they can't stop
Offensive
the
line.
run, offensive
Can't.
line.
Yeah.
It's gonna just be repeating ourselves the entire season. I don't think it's gonna get any better, but who knows? We'll see. But thank you everyone for joining. We'll talk to you next week. Recap the Bears game and then the upcoming game that they have, which I can't remember off the top of
I
my head who they're
can't either. I'm
facing.
looking right now.
Uh, but make sure you subscribe and review on YouTube.
Rams. Rams.
Oh, the Rams. Okay. Is the Rams the 17th already?
Yes. Rams 17th, then Dolphins.
Oh, okay. Because I knew I'm going on the 17th, but I didn't
Yeah.
realize the 17th was already. Um, geez, it is. Yeah, it's already the week after Sunday. So
Yep.
getting close to Thanksgiving. That's the following week. Um, so again, yeah, thanks everyone for listening. Hey, that was kind of caught me off guard. Make sure you subscribe, rate, and review. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter at Pat's 300 Level Pod. And look forward to talking to you next time.